So thank you all for being here, and thank you for choosing this session, because I know that there are some great sessions happening in parallel spaces. This session is called Cyber Sisterhood, Empowering Women Through Online Solidarity. My name is Eva, and I'm a journalist and a podcast founder. You can hear my podcast on YouTube or audio platforms. It's called Tampon Zona. It's a kind of word game. It means buffer zone. And in the beginning, I must say that I'm really honored to be here and to be participating in this kind of conference, because I was so thrilled to see my name in the agenda full of these women from whom I have learned a lot and who are game changers in feminist movement in our region. So I'm very grateful for this opportunity. I'm sorry that we are not physically on stage with you, but I think this arrangement is in keeping with our topic today, so I hope you won't mind. And today, together with, I can freely say, regional feminist stars of online activism, we will try to explain the importance of online networking and advocacy. We will talk about different topics that you can find on digital feminist profiles, why they are not in the mainstream media, and what can we do to make them heard as loudly as possible. And we will also talk about the power and strength of humor and memes in advocating gender equality, and also about how much the online space has taught us some new kind of solidarity. So I have today really a great pleasure to introduce you to women which I follow and support on daily basis, and whose work is responsible for starting many important topics, but also spreading feminist thoughts across the region. So my comrade online fighters and sisters with whom I'm going to talk today are first, welcome Kalia Dimitrova. I don't know if I should say welcome or you should say that, but welcome. Kalia is a poet and an activist from Skopje. She's also an editor of the first feminist platform in Macedonian language, Medusa. Kalia, can you hear us?
Yes, this feels a bit like the Eurovision. Yes,
yeah.
I hear you. 12 points to you, Eva. It's very nice to be here. I'm in Skopje, actually, in another room. So this is very awkward and cute.
So you're at a conference, yeah?
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'm hiding. So yeah, okay. Looking forward to the panel.
Yeah. Today with us is also Hana Ćurak. Hana is an author, producer, and founder of feminist meme page Sve su to vještice. Hana, can you hear us?
Hi, everyone. Hi.
Welcome.
Hi. Hi from Bochum, where I'm attending a completely different conference that's related to my academic career.
And we have Ljeposava, Joka, and Jeka. They're also here with us, and they will talk about their experience with Vala Ljeposava, feminist meme page from Montenegro. Girls, are you all here?
Here.
Yeah. Thank you for being here today.
Yeah, it was challenging finding good Wi-Fi in Shavnik, but we managed somehow.
Yes, we are deep into rural north of Montenegro, where we belong. And this is where, like this new online feminism in Montenegro kind of tries to make its mark.
Thank you. So, Kalia, maybe we should start this conversation with you. Maybe we should talk first about the things that trigger us for our online activism and online content creating. So Medusa is a feminist platform, and there you can find articles that tackle the issues of gender equality on different levels. So from news to some pop culture phenomenon. What is the main premise of Medusa, and how much of similar content do we have in mainstream media? So I would like to know, what is your mission with this platform, and what are your personal kind of drivers for writing and editing this platform?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for the great question. I would say that Medusa is now kind of like, let's say, concluding its 5th year of existence. So I would say that the triggers changed throughout the years. But mainly it started as a very personal thing because as soon as I got back home from my studies, I was very influenced and interested in feminist, I don't know, thought or literature or whatever content I could really like get my hands on. But I realized that it was mostly in English. And back then I was also reading Move a lot, the Croatian feminist page that I think was very informative and formative for a lot of regional feminists. And then I realized that, you know, we don't have such a thing in Macedonian language. And I really, truly kind of like I'm an advocate for language and for storytelling. And I feel like there are certain things that hit differently if you read them in your mother language other than English. And also there is the fact that not everyone, you know, understands English to read it on that level. So it became like this very tiny personal mission of mine to develop such a thing. And also because of my personal, let's say, interest in writing. And I just saw it as a possibility and as a space where I can kind of like express myself. So in the beginning, I really just imagined myself, you know, alone writing these tiny articles or
it was some kind of blog.
Yeah, tiny experiment. But then also, as I was developing the thing, I understood that the type of feminism that I'm interested in, it's more plural. It's really feminisms. And I don't want to be a voice or whatsoever for other people. So it kind of like got developed into a platform where it's based on, the content is created by contributors. We were a small team in the beginning. Now we're around 30 or maybe even 40. And that's why the platform has this very kind of like diverse set of topics, not just topics, but approach to writing. And it's really something that keeps me going throughout the years, because it's not like a very easy thing to do. But it's also, so I would say that, yeah, to not be very long in my answer of the first question. So I guess the first and the obvious mission is just the creation of feminist or let's say progressive content in Macedonian language. But then there is this other mission, which I hold very dear as well. And this is this whole process of editing and working with the writers, because they're not like writers. They're just people that want to share their story opinions, or opinion or knowledge on a certain topic. So we go through this very extensive process of editing, of becoming friends, of, you know, just kind of like being there for each other when we are very vulnerable, in kind of like going out there with something personal or a difficult topic that hasn't been covered locally yet. So this is the mission that I hold very dear, as I said, because it creates these feminist bonds which are really strong and are beyond the cyberspace, even though let's say the product is there, but the thing behind is kind of like the community that's happening alongside. I think
it's great to hear that, because I'm following Medusa for so long and I didn't know the story behind it. So it's very interesting to me to hear all of these details. How much of feminist content or content that tackles the issues of gender equality is there on mainstream media in Macedonia? And what do you think? Did you influence some mainstream media to write more about these phenomena?
I would say that I really do not have a mission to inspire other media. I think that in a way, I would say that the approach of Medusa is very much different, because we are like a slow media. We don't really cover news, and we do more like long length features or whatever, things that need time. So it's really a different type of approach to sharing, let's say. So that's something that I would like for us to keep it that way, because, you know, you can feel this pressure of having to create content all the time.
And of hyperproductivity,
it undermines some other aspects. But of course, like, one of the reasons why we started it is because we didn't feel seen or validated in media or whatever, pop culture, I don't know. I would say that there is a shift in these last 5 years, I could say, because usually media covers, let's say, gender equality topics around the 8th of March. I don't know when some more severe cases of gender-based violence happen, but even then, it's written in a sensationalistic way. But I feel like there are also organizations that work a lot on this, and they work with journalists and with media outlets and try to elevate the discourse in that respect. So I see a shift, but I would say that it's like very one-dimensional, and it's very rare to see in media that they see how gender is intertwined with basically all of the topics. All of the, I don't know, things we live with. And I think that this is something that we really try to do with Medusa, as like having this intersectional approach where maybe in the first year we kind of like covered this like very kind of like obvious or basic feminist topics, but now, you can just, I don't know, read articles about, I don't know, everything, and you can see how everything can be written through a gender lens. And I don't feel like this is something you can see in mainstream media. And as a last point, we have had some critique of being mainstream, and I don't know, I've been struggling with this in the past, but I feel like, because since the beginning I felt like it is important to use this kind of like more non-formal approach, more direct language, just be a bit basic, if you will, because I think that the point is not like for like 6 people to understand what is written there, but just to be able to communicate very much everyday topics and how they relate to women, girls, or other marginalized groups. So
we will talk a little bit later about approaches and the language that we use in our goal is to reach a wider audience, so we must use some tools to do that. So we will talk about that later. And now Vještice and Ljeposava, you have a little bit of different approach in creating content. So you choose meme as a main tool of communication. I think this is really interesting, and it's trendy form. And I think that the impact that memes have today is really huge. For example, let me share one personal experience. I don't know how mothers used to manage to cope with motherhood when there were no honest memes about motherhood. I think that 2 of your meme pages what they manage is to reach some women and create interaction with them that some other formats have failed to achieve. So I would like to hear from you. What do you think is the main power of memes, and why do you choose this format for advocating women's rights?
Go, Ljeposava.
Go, Ljeposava.
I would just love to say the whole work of Ljeposava has been heavily influenced, like everything that we started doing was heavily influenced by Hana's project and Vještice. We love to think of her, of Vještice as our prababa, as Joka would say. And I think Hana has talked a lot about how powerful memes are and how subversive they can be in this particular context. We did see a huge interest in them and a huge spike of meme pages throughout last 5 to 10 years in the region, on the Balkans. But I think that very few of them actually have strong social impact, or, a lot of them tend to talk about certain political issues, or even, lobby for certain political parties or directions. But this specific thing that Hana started, that we decided that we wanted to join, is a very particular thing. I would love her to talk more about it, but I just want to say what you just said about being relatable. And to mention also what Kalia said before about using a simple language so that you can appeal to a wider audience. I think that even though the work of feminist organizations in the Balkans is extremely important in every way possible, that they can contribute and work and help women who are in trouble and raise awareness about very important issues, is that it's often criticized to not be available to everybody, that you have to have some sort of education in order to join the work of to join the conversation, basically. And what we wanted to do is to relate to every woman. We wanted to be the voice of every woman, and we wanted every woman to be able to relate to what we're talking about, because I think that it's at the core of our fight is to understand that our everyday experience, walking on this earth as a woman, is very important. It's what we want to go from when we talk about this. It's not just as important as some complicated and insightful works are. It's very important to understand that our experiences are shaped by patriarchy. And we wanted to let every woman know, you can relate to this. You can see that it's not okay, even though it's a joke, and you can see that you're not alone in feeling a certain way, and it's not your fault.
But we also wanted to have fun and to make fun of things and to, enjoy humor in a feminist way.
And we were also super angry. We were fucking angry. And we were also kind of fantasizing, like some stupid bullshit would happen, politicians would do super things like they always do. And, just the men in, like this kind of patriarchal kind of analysis of our world and experiences would just make us very angry. And then we would start thinking like, okay, what do we do? What do we do now? Like you can't, if you make a protest, it's a protest of, like ad hoc protest is a protest of your 30 friends, maybe, if you're lucky. If you make a very lengthy explanation and you publish it in a magazine or a newspaper, okay, great. But again, who is this going to interact with? Often us, it's going to be us, who read this and uplift this. And we needed a bit sort of something, let's say, some flame to throw into all this. And then, memes gave this to us. And yeah, here we are.
Yeah, it's really a perfect way to get out of the bubble.
Yeah, and bursting the bubble, I think it's really important.
Maybe the only thing that I can...
Let's hear our grandmother of memes.
I mean, one of the most beautiful things that happened in these 8-9 years that Vještica started is actually the solidarity with Lepusava. And this coming from Lepusava is one of the most rewarding things that has happened to me. And actually establishing this camaraderie that goes beyond the newly established borders of our countries, and actually thereby becomes more strong, is something that's really if I would close Vještica now, that would be like the top highlight of everything that has happened. I agree with everything with what has been said. Nothing much more to add. I mean, there's a growing scholarship on the role of memes in cultural reproduction and production. And I think most of people agree that while we can't really call digital activism in that way, or we can, but it's a rather contested term. What we do know is that the visuality of memes, and especially when they're juxtaposed with vernacular languages, the memes that we're talking about today do create some kind of online spaces and offline communities which can be mobilized for specific little everyday revolutions, let's say.
And what is the role of the humor? I think that it's really important to talk about women who have a sense for humor, today, and to look at the humor as some curing stuff, So what does the humor means to you, and what does it means for creating your content?
Can I go? So actually this summer, Hannah, Yeka, and I met, and we actually talked about humor and what it means to us and what it means to women. And we were talking about this historical kind of, in the Balkans, older women and women had cynicism as the only tool to kind of react to the injustices happening to them. You know, like this image of an old woman, and it's actually what Joka is in the TV show, that these characters from Leposava are. She's an old woman that always has kind of a zinger, and always has a comeback, but that's the only power that she has. So kind of humor for women in the Balkans has been a tool for kind of a tool to react, but it also was a space, kind of the maximum space that they could gain. So it kind of helps you relieve the anxiety of living within the patriarchy, but it doesn't, it doesn't hit too hard. It hits, but it doesn't hit too hard. But what we kind of are trying to do with these meme pages is to use this humor and to hit hard by, giving space to women to be funny, for us to be funny, and to be political with this humor, and to, not keep it inside our four walls, and not to be, humorous just, in a very low voice. We just want it to be funny and loud.
I agree that the role of humor is kind of contested throughout generations, especially in the post-Yugoslavian context. And I mean, I always talk about the female context and the female experience. The way that humor actually came to Vještica was through the reactions of the audience, because in the beginning, the only thing that I was doing was actually juxtaposing what I hear on the daily with some images that would just come to me, through internet research. That's kind of like the element of humor that people have recognized as such, and this is something that's very interesting to me, because both Vještica and Leposava to an extent function a little bit differently than memes that we communicate with function, because Vještica, it's a project that's based on a couple of academic and artistic endeavors, and I'm not the first one to do something like this. I mean, Barbara Kruger, one of the most important US artists, has been doing this back in the 60s and so on. Yeah, I guess what we needed at that point in time was some kind of poster child for everything that was happening to us, which is this really intense articulation of the patriarchy on the everyday basis. And then, following the reactions of the audience and so on, and the way that people interact with the content and so on, it came to me that actually people are looking at a situation that they have already been in when they see a Vještica beam. And this is when they realize that this is actually kind of bizarre. And this is like the moment when, they laugh at it. But I think this laughter also has some kind of gorčina, some kind of bitterness to it.
Bitterness, yeah.
Yes.
I agree with that. And I was just about to say the same thing, especially because I find humor a very efficient way to get acquainted and to actually, realize the obstacles that we have in everyday lives, and that are brought to us by these societal hierarchies and by patriarchy and capitalism. It is not easy, especially not when you have to juggle a million things in life, to be confronted with the realities and the causes. And it's not easy to understand that you are oppressed in any way possible. It's not easy to admit it to yourself. It's not easy to work through it. And I think that humor alleviates the at least one part, of the hardness of the struggle, and lets you in gently. As Hannah says, you see it, you relate, you start laughing, then you understand it's bizarre, then you understand that you are in a certain position. But at least for me personally, it helps me cope with these things better. It helps me reflect better on the issues that surround me, and on the issues that I'm a part of, and issues that affect me. But also, one thing that I love about using humor in these purposes is that if you manage to turn a situation inside out and to strip it of the layers of complexity, you get something that is very hard to argue with. And I think that's one of my favorite parts of the process that we have in our admin team. We work a lot on our memes. We often, talk about it, trying to make it bulletproof, as we like to say. And when you manage to do that, then it's just existing as this truth that, no matter how smart a sexist is, they can't really argue with you there, which I think is not easy to achieve with any other instrument that I've tried so far.
And I mean, what our memes are, why our memes are usually funny, they're usually funny because they're true. And that's,
yeah, it's funny because it's true.
Can you maybe describe a process of creating one meme and one post? It seems very complicated to me.
I think this is very different between Leposova and Vještica.
Yeah.
So I'm really interested in hearing how they
I want to hear. Yeah.
But I can start a bit also from talking about how we made some of our first memes, because we were thinking about, okay, Leposava and I were sitting there and thinking, okay, what to do, how to do it. And also we needed these characters that would kind of invite and involve Montenegrin audience right away, because they come from this very, very popular TV show. And then actually the first character there was Radosav. And then for a while, the people don't remember this now, but for a while people were thinking, oh, is this administrated by Radosav, or who's administrating this? But we were putting him, we were building him into this benevolent sexist, right? Oh, I'm just joking. I'm just, I'm not really, I'm an ally of women, but kind of saying all these, things through his mouth before slowly transitioning to Leposava. But all this time it was about figuring out who these personas, who these characters are going to be, how do they relate to their on-screen personas from this whole TV show, and how are we actually going to put, our things into their mouths so that this is effective for the broader audience. And maybe Leposava can say more. I just want to say that we always try to make each other laugh, and then this is always a really good thing to test out.
It's one of my favorite things is if I come up with something and make a meme and send it, and then, because I usually do that at 2 or 3 a.m. the next morning when I wake up, I wake up with the messages from Yeka and Yoka that are laughing their asses off. It's one of the best feelings. But when we first started, it was we came up with this idea that is very auto-ironic, and it's very reflective of Montenegrin society. And it was also very relevant to what was happening at the moment, because our politicians were trying to set up a new government. And so the representatives of the kind of leftist party that turned out not to be leftist, of course, who were advocating for women's rights in their pre-election campaign, were saying, there were no women involved in these negotiations about setting up a new government. And one of them said, we don't want you guys, we don't want women to be tortured by this. We don't want you to have a hard time. So, we're gentlemen, we're gonna do this for you. It was very, very ironic comparing to their campaign. And so we decided it would be very interesting to set up Radosav as, like, I'm fighting for women's rights here. I don't want you guys to trouble yourself. I'm gonna do this for you. And it was fun for a while, especially because people couldn't figure out whether the page was led by a man or a woman. And that was also, like, that raises interesting questions about the issue that we're trying to fight as well, and about patriarchy, and, the stupid old question, are women funny? Do women have sense of humor? Which is like, no point to discuss it, of course. But our meme process is very interesting. It depends on what we're reacting to. When we talk specifically about reacting to certain events that took place and that we want to say something about, whether it's a political issue or a political issue that directly affects women, or some sort of sexist speech that somebody gave, etc., we start discussing it. Of course, we always have some first-hand reactions that we brainstorm. Sometimes we go directly with that. But the interesting part in this process is that once we come up with the meme, then we try to play devil's advocate and to see, it matters to us. And it can be, as people tend to interpret one same thing in different manners. And if somebody is not benevolent in interpretation, they can really, find the pain points, and they can really, turn the thing around, and we don't want to allow that space. So we really try to make it bulletproof from each side. And then after we're done with the meme, then we go on to the caption, which Yeka usually takes care of. And then once we make it, we then proofread everything. And I'm a bit of a stickler for language. And even though we use informal Montenegrin language in our memes, we tend to make it as we possibly can, grammatically correct. So after we're done with all of that, it's the time that we publish the meme. But in the process, we really do have a lot of fun when we are not reacting to the things that are actively happening around us in terms of political affairs and the news and basically, like everyday life. When we are talking about something random but still very relatable, the process looks a bit more loose, but it's still a process that we all very actively participate in and take time. And we love to make a lot of memes and then select the ones that we think are the best. It's really a curating process, which is very fun.
And if I can add, a lot of memes that we have that are already on online are things that happen to us in real life. And I mean, the three of us are friends, and we kind of share our life. And the group where we chat is not just admin group. We share what's happening in our life, and we share the issues that we have with our partners, with people at work and everything. And while we share that, then we start kind of making fun of the situation, and that's how a lot of memes came to be, from actually us sharing things from our lives.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is our partners have tend to have this reaction from time to time, where when something's happening in like our personal relationships, they tend to say, like, please don't put this on Ljeposava.
Please don't make
let us end up in the meme.
Yeah. They say something ridiculous, then they understand how ridiculous it is, and then they're like, please don't put this on Ljeposava.
But it seriously did also happen that our other friends would say something hilarious or something that is instantly memeable. It just lacks illustration, and that's it. Or even our grandmas or mothers. So I think also this is part of the process for Yashtica, to kind of just be in this sisterhood, in this matriarchy of our own making, and then just pick and choose, because it's incredible. It's incredible to be among these wonderful women that you can go through life with and learn from and laugh with, and then some of that definitely ends up being in what we put online.
Yeah, it sounds really great to be part of Ljeposava brainstorming. Hannah, can you tell us a little bit more about your process?
Yes, briefly. This was really interesting to hear.
Yeah.
Because actually Vještica have kind of a different methodology, let's say. So I am an anthropologist. I work at an institute that deals with cultural anthropology, and my research is based in collective curation. This is what I deal with academically. In one hand, Vještica have been kind of an academic and ethnographic endeavor from the very beginning. This has come from different sides. What I like to say about Vještica is that they are a community that poses as a fake collective, that poses as a platform, that poses as a meme page. And this is important because the mechanisms that have been established in creating Vještica content are actually this kind of a collective work that is completely anonymized. Therefore, the name Sve su to vještice in our language, or in English, which people usually correct me, but it's actually not to be corrected. The platform is called It's All Witches. So it's not they are all witches. It signals a community of women, a body of women, a kin of sorts. And the memes don't come from my individual experience. Usually they don't. Some of them do. But they are actually kind of things that I pick up on as some kind of a detector, like a metal detector, picking up on little notions of patriarchy that I hear around. And then through Vještica becoming something that's, of course, larger than me. I'm not important in that platform at all. Through this then come the women that want to contribute, who want to contribute, the men that want to contribute, and then this community grows in such an organic way. A lot of contributors to Vještica. Of course, there's my grandma, there's my mom, who are amazing. A lot of friends from Crvena, an organization that I also work with for 10 years. A lot of my friends who have nothing to do with feminism in a professional sense, and so on. And then it's on me to visualize this somehow. And this, to be honest, I mostly do from the U-Bahn, on my way to work, or from the toilet when I don't have time for that. Yeah, with all of that, I mean, memes to Vještica are one of the communications mechanisms that we use. When it comes to cultural production, there's some other things that are going on in the background. But yeah, memes are still the most efficient and effective way to get the message through. Yeah, so what else to say about the process itself? Nothing much, except that it's not a linear thing. It's more kind of a dynamic of affects, friendships, my own state, visuality that I deal with on the everyday, archiving, trying to subvert the archives in a way, and also learning through doing all of this.
Yeah, thank you for these interesting insights. So I think all of you mentioned the word community, and I think that's a really important word, and that the thing that is common to all of us online platforms is building that kind of relationship with our community, our followers and stuff. So I would like to know what kind of language do you use in interaction with your followers? We are witnessing one situation where everyone can be media station, so what kind of responsibility content creator must have in mind? What are your rules that you adopt? Kalia, maybe.
Yeah, this is an interesting and difficult question, and I feel like I don't have an answer to it because I don't feel like a content creator, even though 100% I am. But I haven't. It's not like something I've been thinking about in my life, and also I feel like I'm not like the most responsible person per se. So my processes are not that well thought through. Uh, that being said, I feel like when you work with other people, and I feel like whenever you do any type of feminist work, it's always, as we said, it's like always a community work. It's always like collective effort. I feel like you always bounce around with different ideas of which direction to go to. And I feel like we kind of like, I don't know, have these daily discussions with my co-editor Dušica. And I don't know, it's just like yeah, the language kind of like comes out of our relationship, and then also with our relationship with the writers. We've had this kind of like difficult situations where I don't know, you would wonder if you should put like a trigger warning when like writing about something or publishing something. And I'm not really a fan of that, because I feel like what people appreciate about Medusa is its rawness and kind of like very honest communication about the topics that we cover. And I feel like that is perhaps our value. We don't have like too many filters, let's say. And then on the other hand, what is very important for me, and I've already mentioned this, is to kind of like try and keep the language as understandable as possible. And then also something that I've noticed is like, okay, obviously we know that people don't read that much. So even though we would never give up of our mission of producing this type of knowledge and archive, like, because I think that this is also something very important, because I was kind of like motivated to start this project also to kind of like digitalize feminist regional feminist thought, let's say, in Macedonian language, to have it like kind of like in one space. I feel like this is important for the, I don't know, the future, I guess. And I forgot what I was going to say. Archive, put it in one place.
Long reads and stuff that you
long read,
will
yeah,
never
exactly,
give
yeah.
up. Yeah.
So thank you. Yeah. So I think that we all of us working on Medusa would like to, you know, keep up with this method of, you know, using language as a creator of worlds, to say it in a very romantic way. But we always have to, you know, kind of like try to engage the people and see if, I don't know, you know, we follow sometimes what kind of topics they like to read, what kinds of topics they don't like to read, but we kind of like follow that just to have it in mind, not that we would abandon a topic just because it's unpopular at the moment. But then also I would say that under the influence of Ještica and Leposava and similar projects, we also developed a certain visual language that kind of like, I don't know, speaks the topic, you know, in a more direct way. And we see how when we use references which are regional, which are from our history, which are connected to ex-Yugoslavia or to kind of like pop culture at the moment, but like local one, we see how, you know, it engages people more, and it also makes feminism more relatable. It doesn't make it this like Western liberal kind of thing, but it kind of like speaks to our regional tradition with feminism. And lastly, I've often had the doubt of whether we should go, and I'm interested in what other has to say about this. So we've been often discussing whether we should go into this thing of kind of like discussing things with people in comments. And we've decided not to, because we publish articles and essays, and people have read a lot and researched a lot in order to write them, and all the arguments are there. And then you have a sexist in the comments and wants you to, you know, kind of like chew information for them, which is again like a very unnecessary unpaid labor that feminists are doing. So we are not engaging with our audience on that level. And the only level that we do engage with them, and I think it's very important, is in private messages, because I feel like Medusa has grown to be this kind of like safe space. So a lot of victims of violence, or any kind, not just victims of gender-based violence, but people with all sorts of questions write to us because they don't really know where to write or are ashamed. And, you know, of course, the internet has this possibility of anonymity, and we can send them to organizations or offer free psychological help, free legal aid, or just to have a chat, you know. And I feel like this is something very important, that especially younger girls see these platforms as a place to be seen or heard and just have a chat. And I would never, you know, not do that, because I feel like that's one of the reasons we exist for.
Yeah,
I just wanted to add that it's the same for Vještica. We don't engage with comments from the audience, except when I see there's somebody attacking somebody on the basis of gender, sex, identity.
We sometimes do. It depends. Usually I'm the one in charge of the comments on Facebook. And it depends on how I'm feeling. Sometimes, you know, when women are being funny in the comments, we then kind of start engaging with them and enjoying their humor in the comments. When there are men, you know, being men, you know, delete, block, and stuff like that always works. Very like big. We're very big on blocking.
I'm a fan of blocking also, I must admit. Yeah.
Huge fan of blocking. That's one of the best things that Facebook ever did. And sometimes when we see that the topic, because sometimes our posts are not just humorous, we tackle sometimes really serious topics like femicide. And if we see that in the comments there that are that the text that we wrote is not understood completely, then we kind of try to explain different things through comments by, you know, interacting with people who are, you know, who are trying to be mean. And then we use this opportunity in, you know, replying to them to maybe go deeper into the topic. So because we know that people are reading the comments. So we just sometimes use comments as another space for, you know, bringing the message, you know, sending the message.
That's great, because I think one of the biggest challenges today is to make people engage more, to research and to read more. You know, our purpose is to use this kind of short formats for inspiring them to dig deeper, you know, and research more.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it's really challenging this moment of short-term memory, but I'm also not giving up, you know, of long articles and stuff. And I think that we shouldn't, but we must find some ways to navigate them.
I mean, our experience is that when we do write long posts, that people do read them. We don't write them as often. So I think that's, you know, that's our kind of advantage, that people know that if it's a long text, you should read it. It's not that we are always writing long text, so you can skip them. And another thing that I wanted to say is that at one point we were very active, like in the beginning, because it was for us, like we were on like adrenaline, because we were kind of, you know, building this thing. Our interaction was amazing. We were really into it. And then at one point, people were like, you know, something happens in Montenegro and we don't make a post about it. And then people like, there's Ljeposava. Ljeposava needs to react. Come on, you know, where is she? You know, she's not reacting to this one because, you know, she was reacting to this other thing and not reacting to this one. She must be paid by someone. Like, and then we kind of decided, okay, now we're not going to react to things happening. We're just going to react when we have time, when when we have something to say, when we feel like it. Like, we don't owe anyone our reaction, our time, our, you know,
Yeah. I think what are you addressing? It's really important topic in online activism, because we are living in some kind of urgency atmosphere, where you should react on everything, and it can be really overwhelming, and you don't have something to say always.
Yeah.
And speaking of overwhelming, also it's very interesting, I think, to and what Joko was just I think maybe Joko, you were about to say something about time, and not just time but also emotional investment. This one of these most important campaigns that us as Vala Leposava had was this related to violence that women suffer at hands of doctors, especially gynecologists and obstetricians. And this is also something that started from a personal experience. Leposava came back, furious from her gynecologist, and we talked about this. And then there was this question that we posed on Instagram story, asking women to share with us if they wanted to. And then really, like, Leposava was administrating that by herself at the time on Instagram, and it was just hundreds of comments, and women coming to you with terrible, terrible, terrible stories, where you really had to, set aside some time to actually, address each and every one of them, with the importance and just the gravity of their situation. And so that's also something that I'm just super happy that we were able to do that, and grateful to Leposava for really setting aside the time to deal with that. And it really gave us the resources to fight, to, in a sense of, to address directly the ministry, the media, to set off this whole array of articles and even stories. And this was a very, very important topic then in the public sphere in Montenegro for a very long time, and then also in the not just in Montenegro but in the entire region, where this is such a big problem. And just wanted to say, related to that, one way of why it is also how it can be important that people don't really know who we are, like, personally, and that you can give them a sort of opportunity to use this as a shield. At one point someone was writing to us, this woman was writing to us that she is going into labor and this is her first baby, and she's so scared because of everything she heard and also because of everything she read, and she doesn't know anyone there. And we basically told her, tell them you're Leposava. Tell them this is you. This is you making this media storm. They have no idea. They can't say you're not. Tell them tell everyone if they do anything to you, they don't want to be done. So I really hope that she felt at least, support, or maybe we made her laugh. But, this is a way of, again, interacting with the community and us wanting to help in any way we can, and to listen to one another and relate to one another.
And just to add to that, I think it was very fascinating to see at that time. It really does take a lot of space, both emotionally and in terms of your time management throughout the day, to set aside, time with intention to be there for community when these things happen. I think that Kritički and Nina from Kritički does that a lot more often, and I'm very amazed at her and how she handles all of that. But from one side, we felt very honored to have the community trust us in that way, to come with all these stories and feel safe to share the trauma and the abuse and, the things that they never told anyone probably before. And it also shows that we are doing something right. And it shows that, removing our personal identities from this page still allows people to be comfortable to talk to us and to say things to us, and trust that we will not expose them personally for saying what they said. But then you also have this element of, we're not doing this to get exposure on our page. We're doing this to get exposure as a community and to draw attention to very sensitive and awful issues. And so you really need to address every woman who talks to you and make them feel heard, and, try to offer some words of consolation. On the other hand, and this ties in as well to what Joka said before about people calling on Leposava to react whenever something happens, is that you can see from one hand, women trust meme pages and unknown, like, anonymous admins more than they trust, public institutions who should be in charge of processing and managing these things, and in improving the conditions for us women in healthcare and in every other sphere of life.
On the other hand, other audience, and when I say other audience, mainly I mean men here, consider a meme page, they hold us accountable for reacting to everyday issues, but they do not do the same towards public institutions, towards political parties, towards the government. So in a way, it's very reflective of the social situation and the, it says that we have given up on our institutions in a way, not we as like us three or something, but as a community, as a wide community, we do not have any faith in institutions taking care of the problems we have as a community. We do not believe that they will address social issues. We do not believe that they will fix these social issues. But then you need to hold somebody accountable. And then you find, ironically, a meme page, which is very ridiculous and at the same time very telling. And then just like to circle back on the comment section, I agree with Kalia, what she said. I think she said it amazingly, that, we should not owe anybody additional unpaid labor of explaining something that we have already explained, or, explained, or Googling something for somebody else. You can do it by yourself. And I especially love Yoka's technique of blocking and deleting comments. We have given ourselves the permission to do that. And, of course, those people who are being deleted or blocked consider that a censorship, but I don't really see it that way. And
yes, because we don't see their comments after they're being blocked, so we don't know how they feel.
Yeah, well, they did tend to write some messages from other profiles, etc. So we then ignore that as well. But it's basically, we want to create a community that's very friendly for discussions and conversations, but we also want it to feel safe. And, having an opinion is one thing, being hateful is another. So yeah, in those cases, we are more than happy to remove those comments and those people from our page, and, kind of enjoy also that they're frustrated that we do that. So
and as Lepasova said, that people trust meme pages more than they trust their government. That's why Lepasova at one point was contemplating running for office. So if we do, we kind of hope that you will support us.
We plan on doing it completely remotely.
Yeah. And as digital persona will be running for the office at one point. That's why Yoka is like Minister of Feminism.
Yeah, subverting metaverse.
Nice. So when we are in the comments section, the one thing that I think we should discuss is this rise of far-right and misogynist narratives among influencers. So we have Andrew Tate. We have Andrew Tate in every of our country. We have few Andrew Tates in every country. So what do you think is the reason of their popularity among young people? They have like army of followers, and they are forming some kind of worshipping cults, So what do you think is the reason of their rise? And how do you think we should fight against this really harmful phenomenon?
Yeah, I can start maybe. I don't think we will answer this question here and now, because I think it's very complex. But let's just kind of like touch it a little bit. I was really stunned. I didn't know much about Andrew Tate, even though I work on the internet. I kind of like don't know a lot of the things happening there. So we published an article by an author about him, and I think it was before he was convicted. And the article was, it was very cynical towards, of course, Andrew Tate and his followers. So it was using humor to connect the previous topic. And I think people got really angry because it was kind of like mocking the alpha guys. So we kind of like got into this situation where we had, I don't know, something like 500 hate speech comments in the comment section that never happened. And it was mostly, you could see that it was mostly young boys. And these are people that don't even follow Medusa. They don't even know that Medusa exists. But, you know, it only takes one share in a, I don't know, this orthodox masculine support Instagram pages to make you known. And this is the first time we actually closed the comment section because they were very graphic and horrific, and they were even fighting with girls in the comments and insulting them, and it was very violent and nerve-wracking. And that's how I got to know Andrew Tate. And yes, we do have certain prototypes of him here. And well, what was I? My point was that with this, you can see that, as I said, it was mostly young boys, and they were all using this ridiculous comment of "What's the color of your Bugatti?" to try to attack the author of the article. But as we all know, like, the majority of the population is poor, and we are in a political crisis since always. And I feel like we have to kind of like work on the topic of masculinity a bit more, because it is a crisis of masculinity happening. I mean, it's also, I mean, these are all like very intertwined issues and very complicated ones, but I feel like for us as women and also girls, they do have kind of, today they have alternative role models, and it's like we kind of like maybe managed to open up the space a little bit so that you can kind of like imagine yourself or reinvent yourself, and I don't know, just explore your identity, let's say. For men, this is very limited, and us, the feminists, are the only ones doing it. But as we know, like, we're not very popular amongst men. And you can see how these boys have like a total crisis of identity, coming from a poor Balkan country, identifying with a criminal millionaire. And this is, I mean, it's very bizarre. It's funny, and it's also very sad and very serious. And it's very hard to kind of like answer the question. But I feel like I think that that's the first time when I got really angry at men, because it was mostly women trying to argue with them in the comments. And then it was a bit of this situation like, men, where are you? Why are you kind of like neutral? Like, they're like army of men asking for girls and women and authors and Medusa and everyone to get raped. And then it's only us dealing with this. So I don't know. I just feel like we need to deal with men and masculinity a bit more. But I don't mean us as feminists, because I'm really also angry at all of the responsibility for everything being put on us. But I mean us as communities, as cities, countries, regions, whatever. So I'm really leaving it open-ended, but it's a topic that interests me and triggers me at the same time.
Yeah. One of the first steps, I think, would be to translate bell hooks in our languages. She hasn't been translated yet.
We could do that. We could seriously do that.
Actually, there's just an analog campaign that I'm about to do that's doing that. So yeah, we can expand it as well.
I think this is a very complex topic, but I feel that these men prey on insecurities that, you know, stem from this patriarchal, growing up in patriarchy, you know, and children are prone to picking up on different things. It's very, unfortunately, it's not hard to manipulate with people in general, but with children especially. And it's very sad, and it's me personally, I feel a great amount of anger when I see how they do that, how they do not, you know, there's no moral compass in it at all. But as we read a lot about the rise of Andrew Tate and Andrew Tate like influencers, let's say, we read a lot about these incel forums, and it's something that has existed for a long while. It just wasn't as exposed, at least not to us, because online everybody lives in their own bubble, whether we like it or not, and that's how the algorithm works, basically. But like the deep pits of Reddit and other popular social forums online have fostered that culture for a very long time. And I think that some men found it very easy to prey on that and to capitalize on it, which again draws all of the setbacks and everything we fight against when it comes to capitalism and to patriarchy. I'm not exactly sure what's the best way to stop it, but I agree with everything that Kalia said, and I agree with what Hannah said, and I think we would all benefit so much from reading women.
Do you think that platforms like TikTok or Instagram have some kind of responsibility, because they know who is Andrew Tate and what he did, and they just kept his account,
Yeah, well, I think those platforms, social media platforms in general, and especially except for TikTok, everything else that's very popular and that we use is owned by Meta. And, Meta is a parent company of Facebook and Instagram, etc. And we all are very aware of them being very greedy. And, they are shameless billionaires who will stop at nothing. So they should take responsibility. They want some of the platforms that we see online do take some sort of precaution, but when it comes to other topics, for example, Google as a search engine is very laid back, and actually not laid back, but very careful when it comes to healthcare. So, for example, they will not, they regulate advertising in healthcare and searches and search results in healthcare very much, because they say, it's your health, so they don't want to be held responsible. On the other hand, they don't do that in any other sphere. And I think it's the same with social media. You do get a lot of exposure, and they profit from accounts that get exposure. So we can't really see them turning them down or shutting them down because they are being hateful. They kind of moved all of that responsibility to us as individuals. And that is something that is, again, very symptomatic of capitalism. It's the same with climate crisis, but not to digress. A very popular move of placing the blame and moving the responsibility to individual people instead of institutions or organizations who should be in charge of that. So when it comes to removing hateful messages from social media, it comes to us as consumers to report and to ask other people to report. But this is very tricky and dangerous because again, that army of incels, if we are allowed to call them that way, are the ones who go after feminist pages and report our pages and try to shut us down. And often they do succeed in that. Whereas it's, we're not as mobilized as they are because, well, they spend most of their time on these platforms. So I think that they should definitely be held responsible, but they are simply not. And as much as people are trying to address that issue, it's again something that needs to be regulated by authorities and by the government. I think the EU is doing a better job of regulating social media than the government in the US is, but it's still all very, as we can see, tacky.
If I can add just a bit. So when it comes to guys like the one that we mentioned, and what Hannah was saying about translating bell hooks, I think we should also think about translating Carol Pateman and her book, The Sexual Contract, that actually talks about the society and the existence of this contract that happens between men and women, that women should be readily available for sex to men. And that's something that, men on the internet are sending as a message and kind of giving boys and young men, giving them freedom to think this way of women. It kind of reinforces their patriarchal stereotypes that are, they have deep within them, that they've absorbed by living in the society that we live in. And there's just a man on the internet, saying this outright, making it okay, validating their thoughts, their toxic thoughts. and, you know, telling them it's okay, which is contrary to the actually popular thing, you know, this quote unquote wokeness that's happening, that's, you know, this political correctness that everyone is feeling like, you know, it's this huge awful thing that, you know, is suppressing our freedom of speech, our freedom of thought, you know. And then people like Andrew Tate can seem very revolutionary because they're speaking their mind, you know, they're speaking every man's mind. I mean, don't worry, I don't think that every man is, you know, thinking what Andrew Tate is saying, but it's
Hashtag not all men.
yeah, hashtag not all men. You know, so I think that his magic formula is this, you know, validating the bad thoughts that men have, and, you know, making it okay, making it cool, making it hip and rich and whatnot. And, you know, that's really hard to fight against. It's really, really hard to fight against that, because, you know, it's just an easy way of becoming popular, you know. I mean, it's the same tactic that that's how Trump won the election. He was speaking his mind and, you know, saying all the bad things outright, and then everyone was like, no, he must be, you know, really truthful, because he's saying all this awful shit, you know, openly. That means that we can always trust what he's saying because he's always saying the truth. And, you know, Trump.
Yeah. And just to add to what you just said, I think it works because it's easier to have your thoughts and feelings that you might be uncomfortable with validated than accepting them and dealing with them. Yeah. And so, you know, boy math is Andrew Tate is my therapy. So
I think we should also talk about media literacy today. You know, when we talk about young people and stuff, I think that what literacy was in the 19th and 20th century, we should talk about some formal education on how to navigate all this chaos with social media and media, and how to use it and how to get critical when consuming it. So, yeah.
To that, I think this work can be done only longitudinally and incrementally. This was one of the ideas of Vještica as well. When I started 7-8 years ago, it was not to have posts that react to post-Dayton reality of Bosnia and Herzegovina, but actually deal with topics that longitudinally preserve are in that space over time. And with that also came media literacy and trying to kind of engage in, you know, developing critical thinking skills and so on. And this has been done through a number of strategies, which I have to, you know, engage with all over and over again. So it's not a post about what media literacy is, and it's not a post on how to use the internet, but rather it's, I don't know, 7 years of building an archive of people who are using my memes, and then getting people to actually go to click on this archive and there find out who these people are, rather than writing their names on memes, but then engaging them with these memes and so on. So yeah, when it comes to media literacy, of course, all of us have this responsibility. Unfortunately, our countries have been completely looted. So in that sense, I don't think media literacy will be taught in schools, at homes also. It depends who your family is. And therefore, it's a task left on people who want to be present on the internet.
Yeah.
I actually had a privilege of having media literacy as a facultative course in our high school. So I took
high school, wow.
Yeah, in high school, and that was all thanks to this literature professor who pushed that idea. it wasn't a very popular class, and the reason why is because it was always held. And us as kids would tend to choose something that's not held every week, so you can leave earlier. But it was very beneficial, and if Leposava was in charge, that would be non-facultative choice. You would have to attend media literacy.
You mean when Leposava?
When Leposava, yes, manifestations and affirmations. But it's very challenging, and in Montenegro we have been witnessing this for decades, but we're still witnessing it even after the fall of DPS and the previous government. These private, as we call them, news portals that have a very specific agenda and do not shy away from anything. And as we're talking about cyber activism at the moment, it could be a good opportunity to mention this, but I don't know if you're familiar with a small town on the north of Montenegro, Kolašin, being very devastated by the construction boom at the moment. It was, let's say, popularized by the opening of the highway, and it was always a popular tourist destination. But now everything is pretty much going to hell there, and the local activists are trying to react and to drag more people into this. And we have one journalist, a woman journalist, who is always researching in detail and writing very good and informative articles about what's happening in Kolašin regarding that. And of course, these private news portals are attacking her personally, and it's basically it's a witch hunt at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And, it would be good to see anybody except the activists react. It would be good to see institutions react, but of course none of that is happening. And
Leposava, if I can just add to this, because this is just perfect to just make a full circle from these social media being owned by these moguls, who own it all over the world and make a ton of money on it, and on the other side having local investigative journalists who are taking the heat for the investigative work they're doing. And if they stop doing this work, we will not have this information. We will not have this local source of information. We will not know what is happening in our communities due to patriarchal capitalist structures that are just driving our economy and driving our existence. So it just makes like this full circle that people have to fend for themselves and try to somehow articulate that they are in danger, that they need support, and on the other side just having so much money and so much influence, fueling the reactionary and the traditionalist ideas behind all of this. So it just makes it very obvious the dangers in which this media landscape puts us and how difficult it is to navigate, especially if you are progressive, activist, feminist, loud about what you're doing, and also what are some spaces that we can hack in some way, some spaces where we can actually do something for each other, and actually imagine, how these online spaces are going to look like, or we would like them to look like in the future when these moguls and conglomerates are hopefully, brought somehow apart or socialized, or just, if we can imagine other ways in which these online spaces can function outside of the capitalist framework.
But we're also the media. I mean,
yeah.
I talked to some of my colleagues, and thing that she said last night was me and my friends were trying to understand what's happening in Kosovo through memes that we shared. So they don't read the news anymore. They don't read the newspapers. They get informed through memes and meme pages, and through Instagram and TikToks and Facebooks. And so I think that our responsibility kind of is greater because of that. And I mean, because we're the ones informing the public what's happening when we do react to things happening. So, yes, we need critical thinking, but we also, as kind of, while creating content, we need to be more responsible when creating it, and that's what we try to do in Leposava, and it's sometimes too much work, especially because this is not our primary. We're not, Leposava Joka Nijeka all the time. like our when we're civilians, we all have 2 to 3 workplaces each. So we don't have enough time to do the proper research every time, and that's it's kind of a scary thought that that we are the media in some sense for the younger people, and we know how we work. I mean, we do work responsibly, but then we know that it's kind of others are not doing it. When you go and look at the posts of other meme pages and how easily they put some of the some political statements and informations, they just put it for the fun of it, and that's how people get informed. Then who can know what the truth is? On a positive note,
I'm gonna go back to sisterhood now, because we have that word in title, and I think we should talk more about it. So I would like to ask you, how important is online networking between feminists in the region? And did you have some collaborations that you are particularly proud of? And how do you use how internet is useful for this kind of networking and making a community in the region?
Maybe I can start just briefly as well.
Yeah, I saw that collaboration yesterday with Oblakoder and Nina Kritički, and I think it's a great example.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, maybe I can share my screen to kind of also, make this a bit more interactive. I can show a couple of collaborations that I did in the last year, which all came kind of through Vještice, and I think that's this. What I mentioned in the beginning, this is one of the most beautiful things that have happened to me through Vještice, to actually create a community of Vještice and to be in constant contact with them. So I think you can all see my screen now.
Yeah.
Let me just go into the presenter mode. Right, here we are. There we go. I will run through the memes. One of the most recent collaboration was working with the artist Sheila Kameric on her book Mother is a Bitch, which thematizes also this figuration of a witch. Some other ones that I had also, Leftist publishing an interview that one academic from the US has done with me about the platform. On the right-hand side is a collaboration with the University of Rijeka, which we recently did in their seminars in collaboration with their fellows. Also presenting one of the most important books in the last couple of years to thematize contemporary art from Yugoslavia. Vještice were one of the presenters. Establishing collaborations with Kulturpunkt and all kinds of different independent media outlets, not just through writing, but also through engaging in workshops and organizing workshops. Here on this picture is a workshop we did in Gallery Nova in Zagreb earlier this year. The topic was intervention, which is something that I do for my academic research as well, and actually silliness as intervention. It was a beautiful workshop, and I really get to meet a lot of wonderful women through it. Men I don't meet. They usually just kind of except for Boris, which you can see on the right hand side. But all the other men would usually just ask things like, when will I end up on Vještica or something like that. Here on the left hand side also you can see a collaboration with Crvena and the Historical Museum of Bosnia. They actually uncovered a lot of anti-fascist women's movement archives that haven't been properly documented in the museum archives. And then we created this exhibition and actually worked on archiving all of these things. On the right-hand side, one of the talks, artist talks that Vještica did. This one was with Sheila Kamerich's exhibition, and Boris Budin was one of the people who participated. Yeah, so all of this kind of came through Vještica and actually people recognizing what I'm talking about. But it also happens on two levels, I would say. On one level is these kind of collaborations with Oblakodir, which I kind of deem more, going into the direction of media, activism, and so on. And I'm happy to provide my platform for things like that. This will also include like calling out to protests or street actions, which have to do, especially in the last time, regarding femicide. But then on the other hand, there's also this network of collaborations, which is more in this academic sense of what I'm doing as a researcher, curation, art, and so on. And I don't think that these two things exclude each other. Some people judge me because of these, or like don't know where to place Vještica. But I think it's really fun to play with all of these things together. Yeah.
Yeah, I would add, it's very impressive to see all of this. I actually took a few screenshots of the books that you shared, so I can look for them later. We have connected with a lot of feminist activists, especially cyber activists, let's say that way, after forming Leposava. And it was, it was a very crucial and transformative experience, especially since we found that it's, it has a bigger and a stronger impact, which is not unusual if we are all in when it comes to certain campaigns and certain actions. So it showed great solidarity, and it showed potential for us as women and feminists to work on a broader scale and to reach more women and to create a critical mass that we need for hopefully raising this revolution and tearing down the patriarchy. But it was also like a very beneficial and beautiful experience, as Hannah said at the very beginning, to connect with her and with some other feminist activists and, form friendships that function even though we're not very often or almost never in the same physical space. And it was very life-changing. We as Leposava had a lot of media attention after that gynecologist and OBGYN violence action has happened, which was very, as Jeka said before, spontaneous. And we did give a lot of interviews. We do love to support some of our local organizations in Montenegro as well, such as organizations that take care of protecting the nature and the animals, etc. So we also do that. But at the moment, I can't really remember if we did any bigger collaborations. Help, please.
Yeah, we haven't done any actual.
But this is also very big that you're talking about. So.
Yeah. We haven't done the ones that like Hannah was talking about. We haven't done any actual projects, but what we do, and Hannah is a part of it, and I actually love it. We have an Instagram group with all the meme pages and like feminist pages, and we call it the Feminist UDBA. I don't know how to translate UDBA in English.
Like a spy service.
Yeah,
like from kind of has certain bad
like
connotations.
CIA, like
an inside joke. It's more of an inside joke.
Yeah. So when any one of us is doing any campaign or something big is happening, we kind of use that group to help share the message, or when we want to check on some information, when things are happening in one of the countries where we live, we would share the information and kind of try to think together about what should be done. And kind of we are using this huge following that some of us have, and we share each other's messages, so that we try to use this collective visibility that we have in order to push some of the messages. So we're kind of trying to be strategic about it sometimes.
And there is also, apart from that, there is a certain level of sharing. Ljeposa mentioned before that we got connected with, and Joka, yeah, you just said about that, but also when it comes to activists who are working on the ground in Montenegro, and specifically and super important, young female journalists. And so young women who research and write about women, or write from feminist perspective, or write from this place of sensitivity towards, being a woman in patriarchy. And this is super important. So for many times we got the requests to provide some information or background, or just help, with enlightening some issues, even when we are not directly cited in their final piece, because these young women figured that there is certain knowledge here that could help them out in figuring out how they want to approach their story. So I think this is also super important, and I just love that also they don't necessarily know who we are, but are like, hey, I can ask Ljeposa about this because it seems like she knows a thing or two about about this. And Ljeposa, you said before, so what we do once a year, we do this fanzine that we put out on the 8th of March, and so far we supported several feminist and ecological organizations through that. So this year it was Center for Researching Birds in Montenegro, an amazing organization. And then in previous couple of years, it was the Center for Women's Rights. It was also Matriarchia from Belgrade, who was fundraising at the time because of the fire that they had in their print office. So things like that, just, various ways in which we can contribute to those that reach out to us. And also if we, can find a way to reach out to someone else, this is also what we do. And, what proves to, it's all going into this sort of a network that we're all weaving, I think, together. And it seems like, something's moving in the right direction. I like that.
Yeah, and speaking of the zine, I just have to add to this. We actually made a great connection with our now friend from Montenegro, who has, she had a, let's say, collaborative concept store. It wasn't really, this typical modern capitalist concept store that you find today. She started this through, like a entrepreneurship supported project, and she gathered a lot of women from Montenegro who did handmade stuff, handcrafted jewelry, clothes, various things. And we discovered her when we were trying to find a place where we can sell the zine that we created. And we started collaborating with her. She was so supportive and amazing and helped us a lot. And then last year, she told us actually that Ljeposa put her on the map, which was like a great honor and privilege for us. But it was also very funny because she was saying the first year when we started selling the zine in her store, that a lot of people came there to see if they can spot Ljeposa and see who we are. So, that kind of, let's say, superficial curiosity brought people to the store, but it also got them familiarized with some of the great handcrafters in our community and supported the work of women and their small businesses, which we're very proud of. And we hope to continue to contribute in any way we can.
Ladies, I'm terribly sorry to interrupt, but we are 10 minutes.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
It's a fascinating conversation, but I'm afraid we're going to get
maybe to give Kylie opportunity to say some final words, and then we can skip to comments and questions from audience. Yeah.
I'm afraid we.
No.
Actually, need to leave the room. We were supposed to be here until 6. It's 10 past.
Okay. So maybe to hear Kalia just
Yeah,
final
I can
words
just
and
say the final words in a sentence. Yeah, I mean, it's the same experience for me as well, like collaborations, going on festivals, meeting feminist friends, doing books together and everything. It's all been an amazing ride. But still, I would just stress, and maybe that's a good note to end this panel on, that I feel like the true sisterhood kind of like comes beyond the cyberspace and summits such as this one. And I'm always very grateful when I actually get to meet the people and do something, whether it's like, I don't know, a festival, a book, a discussion, or whatever it is. But I think that the cyberspace is a great way to kind of like get to know each other and just kind of like create great things starting from there. That's all I had to say. Very brief.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all for your insights and experiences. So I want you all to follow and support Meduza Vještica Mbala Ljeposova. So I don't know if anyone is in the room now. I can't see the audience, but I'm sorry that we don't have time for questions and comments, but feel free to write us, each of us, if you like, to our profiles and share some impressions from this panel. So thank you, girls, for your time and all the things you shared.
It was a great conversation.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you, Eva, for
And
moderating.
thank you, Eva, for everything you're doing with your podcast. It's really,
thank you.
We haven't praised you enough during this.
And our audience for sticking with us.
But we do religiously follow the podcast.
Of course.
I just got my mom hooked on that, so.
Yeah, great.